Welcome to Conversations with Kit and Alex. I'm Kit Cassingham, longevity coach at Live in Focused Energy. Age is a mindset. I work with women who are open-minded and want to live in purpose. If you're that woman, I'll help you look at your mindset to recognize and redefine your age ceiling, that glass ceiling that shapes your perception of life expectancy and quality. It's not how long you live as much as how well you live. Then, to help you clarify your purpose, we'll discover your why operating system. When you know why you do what you do, you'll find you have even more reason to make lifestyle choices that support a vibrant life.
Nice. And I'm Alex Neal, certified high performance and mindset coach. And what I do is empower high achieving women who want it all but feel exhausted, stressed out, and unfulfilled to banish the hustle and design a life where career, relationships, and well-being live in harmony.
I like that so much. So we're going to talk about knowing and standing in your truth, living your truth. Maybe that's walking your truth.
Oh, maybe.
I did it. In high school, we did a lot of walks to raise money, and there was a walk for development, which is not truth, but it's kind of like truth. So anyway,
It's growth.
So, as we were talking about what to cover and how, my first question was, and you had a ready answer, thank you. How do you figure out what your truth is? I mean, it's intuitive, but our audience might like some input. And you had some great ideas that started with self-awareness.
Mm. Yeah, I think self-awareness is, it's at the root of most of our questions, right? And most of our life is that if we don't know what we want, who we are, if we're not aware of ourselves and our mindset, then we can't change it. I had somebody at work used to say, you can't change what you don't measure. And it's true, right? And for us, measurement could be understanding how we feel at a certain point in our life. And the awareness comes from sometimes people telling us things, but sometimes it's that feeling inside that says something's not right.
It's a self-observation and reflection. You see how people are reacting or how your intentions were not understood. And when you self-reflect, then you can find some truth in that to work on. Of course, you have to be willing to work too.
And you have to be willing to listen.
Yes, which is both to yourself and to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that you have to see too, how'd you put it? You can't change what you don't measure. And we all recognize that's true with our weight, our health actions. If we don't keep track of how many steps we take every day, we'll think we took as many today as yesterday, only to be surprised if we're keeping track. Maybe a lot more, maybe less. And that's true with how much food we eat and how much we sleep. I showed you my new device that measures carbon dioxide. So I'm now going to be a lot more aware of fresh air in my environment so that I can keep a healthier system. And this somehow dovetails with COVID. So we'll see.
Okay.
But anyway, I've sidetracked us again.
No, that's okay. I think it's also important to understand, like, what is truth? What is your truth for you? When I say standing in your truth, what does that mean for you?
That means, well, maybe defining it with itself. That means that I have to know what I believe in and stand for and wrap it up. It's my values, and use that in everything I do, both how I live my life and how I interact with others. the choices I make, with the car I buy, whatever.
Yeah.
All of
And
that for me. I mean, that's how far I take my truth and my values.
yeah.
I'm
And
not going to buy.
personally, go ahead.
I'm not going to buy a truck of an F-350 because it burns way too much
Yeah.
gasoline.
Yeah.
I'll buy a little tiny car or an electric car because that's my values and that's my truth. Okay, back to you.
No, it's you and I define it very much the same way. But if I think back, maybe 5 years, 10 years ago, before I got involved in the whole personal development world, if somebody had asked me, what's your truth? Or what does it mean to you when I ask you that? I would have been like, I don't know, because I wasn't aware enough. And nobody had ever asked me that
Mm,
question. So I think one of the important things, and one of the things you and I are doing here, is saying to people, what is your truth? What does that mean to you when you
yeah,
hear me say this? Because it's that first access point of further growth and further definition and understanding what it is, so that we can live in alignment with that truth.
and it's very important. I had not faced the concept of standing in my truth until I heard a friend tell a story. And I think I've told this before. Um, Two of my friends went out to lunch, and one made a racist comment about the waitress.
Mm.
And the other guy stood up and said, I can't abide by that behavior and belief system, and left. He gave the waitress a tip for having, all she did and was end up bringing water, and he apologized for his friend's behavior and left. And I thought, I've been taught to be nice and be pretty, and that doesn't feel nice or pretty, but that is truth. Their friendship ended at that moment.
Yeah. Because it's not just about aligning our truth, but making sure that it's also in alignment with the truth of the people that are around us. Because otherwise, there's
Yeah.
that disconnect and that discord, and that also doesn't feel good.
Right. Now I could counter argue my friend's behavior standing up and leaving by saying you could have stayed there and slowly and carefully educated him on the on the problem with being a racist, on the
Mhm.
fault of that, and that it's more truth to accept all people as equals, regardless of what their differences are. But it was bolder. I mean, you've heard of the black man who befriended a KKK Grand
Yeah,
Poobah, whatever they're, and slowly the Grand Poobah left the KKK and realized that blacks were people too.
yeah.
So that's where I come with my friend could have slowly done it, but since my friend wasn't black, it wouldn't have conveyed as well.
And the person needs to be willing and ready to hear it. And,
True, true.
a one-shot deal like that might not have been the best place or the best way to convey that message either.
It would have been the ongoing friendship where it would have been conveyed, not at
Yeah,
lunch.
yeah,
It would have been an interesting lunch conversation if
yeah,
he'd
no
stayed
kidding.
and talked.
No kidding. Yeah,
Oh, if I could have been a mouse in that pocket. But anyway,
you're right.
so, once we know what our truth is, which is having conversations with people, it's
Mhm.
it's thinking and processing and etc. It's being mindful. In fact, mindfulness, I think, is the
Mhm.
bridge into the action, which I think is more important than knowing. Of course, you have to know what you're standing for,
Yeah, yeah.
but mindfulness is real critical in all
Uh,
of this.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. And I think it also goes back to what we were talking about last time when we talked about personal beliefs and values. because there is an exploratory piece, an exploratory moment when we are trying to figure out what our truth is. Some of it happens organically as we have experiences in the world, as we grow, as we connect with other people, and we learn from the world and from the people around us. But at some point, I feel we need to decide for ourselves, instead of taking on everybody else's truth, to take that
Right.
moment to say, okay, this is where I am today. Is that the right place for me? And if not, then start exploring different ways of being so that you can actually find your truth.
And I'm glad we covered that in last month's call with values, and you and I do that all the time in our coaching. So, but it's good to bring it back here to help tie it in to truth. So values and truth are very much the same. So yeah, it's explore, don't reject outright. Explore the values you were given starting as a child. And then your parents, your caretakers, your teachers, your ministers, rabbis, priests, all of them give you more values, your boss. And when do you start evaluating that value, that truth, and decide that is not for me, that is for me? Oh, this other thing that we've not even covered is for me.
I think it depends on what's going on in our lives. There might be instances that are like a huge wake-up call where all of a sudden, just like your friend, right? It was like night and day, make or break. This is right or this is wrong for me, right? And there are other times where it's kind of like creeps up on you in terms of how it comes into your life. It might take a few reminders, a few different instances of something challenging you to realize that this is not a truth I want to hold on to.
Exactly. And your circumstance may change, which all of us, then it's time to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And go, okay, that no longer is my value or my truth. If your kid all of a sudden comes up and says, I'm a different gender than I was raised, you no longer, you can learn to love and accept your child or reject them. And it was, what will you do with your values? I've watched several of my friends go through that. It's interesting to watch. I mean, their intention is, of course, to stay connected to the child or the kid, but it's a challenge for them because they're doing that mindful thinking, that self-reflection. And humans aren't always very good at that.
Agreed. And imagine the courage that it takes for somebody to come out because they're living, I imagine, I'm not in that situation, so I can only imagine they're living a lie every single day and they're not standing in their truth. And that just must eat you alive inside. And then you've got the other side of the coin that's you come out and it's a 50-50 shot, right? People are either going to accept it or reject it. And then you have to live with that. They have to live with that. Right.
Right.
But there has to, I imagine it must feel liberating, as painful as it is.
It has to be, or people wouldn't do it.
Be able to stand in your truth.
Yeah. Yeah. We stayed with some friends on our journey that we've just completed. And I asked how they met, a couple guys, and they talked about it. And they said, I forget how we got to it, but one said, my parents thought when I moved in with my now husband that I was sleeping on the sofa. It took them 2 years to realize that's not where I was sleeping. I thought that was cute. So we tell ourselves lies so we can accept the things that are in front of us that are true, but we have to make them be true in a way we can understand and accept it. So that's a cute story to reflect that.
No, that's funny. That's funny. And this whole thing around, the truth or our truth is really about embracing our authenticity and embracing who we are instead of judging, instead of hiding, instead of compromising. It's really just accepting who we are, what we stand for, what we want, and living our life according to what feels good to us.
Yeah. You know, when I saw a lot of the gurus, the Tony Robbins, Jeff Walkers, Brendan Burchards, etc., start talking about their meditation practice, it all of a sudden became acceptable for the you and me of the world to talk about our meditation practice without being dismissed as being woo-woo, out in the fringes. So, I mean, I kept standing in my truth, and I did talk about my meditation practice, and often with a raised eyebrow and kind of a, really? You're one of them? You seem so down to earth. But as soon as they started hearing their gurus talk about it, they looked at me in a different light. So I'm glad that the gurus sometimes lead the way in ways well, I guess they intended to lead the way in reflecting that, but that is embracing their authenticity.
And it's the law of reciprocity, right? Them embracing their authenticity gives everybody else license to embrace theirs,
etc. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Or to explore something they hadn't thought of doing. You know, if you didn't meditate because you thought only woo-woo people do it, only fringe people do it. Oh, look at that person doing it. I'll try it.
Yeah.
And then deciding whether they like it or not.
It's funny because I've spoken to my mom about meditation before, and she's like, that's not for me. I'm too down to earth. I'm too real. My feet are too planted on the ground for me to do, to do meditation. And you know what? It's her truth, and it's okay.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Each to their own. And I stay more grounded because I meditate.
Because exactly.
Yeah.
So
let's see. So look at my notes. Oh, setting boundaries. When you brought that up this morning, I was really intrigued, because I hadn't thought about my truth involving boundaries, but it sure does.
It does.
One, it keeps me inside my truth and my boundaries. And when I bump up against that boundary, I go, oops, I'm about to break my truth. I better rethink or recalibrate or and back off. But it also lets other people know just how far they can go with me without breaking my truth or offending my truth. I don't know if offending is the right word, but
compromising, maybe, your truth.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, boundaries are such a critical piece for me. And it's funny because boundaries is a topic that keeps coming up in so many different discussions.
Doesn't it?
Because I think either we don't think about setting boundaries because we're running so fast all the time that we don't have time to stop and think and say, okay, what should my boundaries be? But then we're running so fast that we are exhausted because we haven't set boundaries, right? So it's a chicken and egg type of thing. Do you set the boundaries, or do you, allow the world to kind of jump in? And so is the boundaries being set because I choose, or is the world forcing me to set boundaries, right? But with our truth, I think it's the same thing. Our truth is kind of our line in the sand, right? And being able to say, this is what's acceptable and this is what's not acceptable.
And I'll even go so far to say right and wrong in many cases.
Yeah. In many cases, you're right. Yeah. And being able to set those boundaries is selfish in a good way, in that it allows us to safeguard ourselves, our sanity, our truth, But it's a gift to other people as well because it lets them know how far they can go until it's not okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people will push, push, push simply because they don't know where the line is.
And that's the nice way of looking at it. There are people who will push because they know where the line is and they don't like
Sure.
that line for whatever reason.
Mm. Yeah.
So that brings up all other kinds of conversations of about that friendship or connection or whatever.
But
But
maybe
yes,
that's a
we
topic.
need to
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm done.
No, I was just going to say maybe that's a top boundaries is a topic that we can explore at another date in terms of, how do you set boundaries? How do you stick to them? How do you communicate them? It might be an interesting one for you and I to take on.
I think we'll do a good job with it. We'll have fun with it at the very
Yeah, we
least.
will,
Okay.
if nothing
Yeah,
else.
let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk and see where we want to put that into our
Mm.
agenda, our schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So then once we have our truths defined and understood, we've got our boundaries, then it's time to start aligning our goals with our truths.
Mhm.
The, I love to tell stories. Used to organize meetings for the mastermind my husband had started. And being an environmentalist, I started choosing hotels that had green practices. One hotel had green practices, but the hotel was in bad repair. They
Mm.
threw them out of the environmental practices out the window when they got crunched with meetings that they weren't ready for. And one of the members said to me after that, if this is what we get with green hotels, quit looking at green hotels. I can't abide this. And I said, I agree with you that this was a substandard hotel, green or not. And and that's when I actually started to go visit the hotels to see what were they walking their talk. And sadly, they often were not walking their talk.
Mm.
But I wasn't willing to lower my truth or step out of my truth
Yeah.
to make others comfortable in this one situation. I found a way of making it work within my truth. That was my goal. We're going to meet in green hotels. We're
Yeah.
going to live green for those few days. And if you want to go home and not be green, that's fine. That's yours. But here. So I think that's one way of when we talked about goals, that is a goal that was aligned with my truth.
Mm. Yeah. And it's a goal that was aligned with going back to what we talked about last week, to your values,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that alignment piece and that congruence piece is important because when we know what our truth is and we know what our values are, if we're not living those, it doesn't feel good, right?
No, it
We can
doesn't.
feel it in our stomach. I personally know that when I'm not living in alignment with that, I'm like, ugh, right? You get that icky kind of feeling.
Where do you feel that? In your chest, your stomach,
I feel it
your
in my
head?
solar plexus. I
Okay.
really feel it in my stomach, like there's like this either this ball or this pit in my stomach that doesn't feel
Okay.
right. So listening to our bodies, and I'm not very good at listening to my body, otherwise I would not have suffered from burnout, but I'm learning, right?
That's right.
So one of the things that I'm learning to listen more is literally listen to my gut and listen to what my gut is telling me so that I know when I'm in alignment and when I'm not in alignment. And when I feel the twinge coming, it's a moment for me to reevaluate and to say, why am I feeling that? And what am I going to do about it?
And knowing what you're going to do about it can be hard sometimes.
It is.
Maybe it's hard all the time because it means a change.
Yeah. And we all
And
know
it
change is
cases
hard.
me too. And it's a reevaluation. Is this a truth
Yeah.
or is it not? And if it is a truth and I'm not living it, then need to change it. Or if it's not a truth, then I can take it off the list and not worry about living it or standing in it or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of knowing your truth and always being in that evaluation mode, and whether or
Mm,
not, because I think some things are constant and some things evolve as we grow over time. But being able to understand our truth and being able to say, you know what, this was valid then, it is no longer valid now. And what do I need to then replace it? And how do I then align my behaviors, my goals, my friends, my whatever with this,
my life.
yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
this new understanding?
So one thing that keeps bouncing around in my head that it may be a whole different call sometime, but you've heard keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm, mm,
And I see that I see people lie in the world, tell blatant lies,
mm.
sometimes about inconsequential things, sometimes big things. And I wonder, do I keep that person closer, knowing that they're a liar, so that I have forewarning of future behaviors? Or do I move them out of my life circle, my sphere? What do you, am I make, does that make any sense? And what do you think of that?
Hmm. I feel that it depends whether it's habitual or not. If somebody continuously and always lies, then you can't, there's no way you can build trust, right?
True.
And you can't have a friendship without trust.
Right. Or a business relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think we all tell little white lies. You know, does my butt look big in these pants? No, honey, your butt looks great in these pants. Okay, thank
You
you,
are
honey.
so pretty.
Right? But these
Yeah.
are like, life altering things. But
Right.
so I really feel like it depends on what it is and
Hmm.
how, how frequently, and I don't know, it's a tough one.
It's an interesting one to bat around. So if we find it interesting to we can
Yeah.
uncover it or dig down in it later.
Honestly, for me, it boils down to trust. Can I trust this person? And if I don't
Right.
feel like I can, then it's not somebody I want in my life, because I want people to trust me, and
And
I
that's
want
a
to be
two-way
able to,
street.
yeah,
Oh, there's one of your truths.
true.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Excellent. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was a good question, though.
All right. You've been talking about the changes that we can make if we're being mindful and continuing to evaluate our truths and how they are in our worlds. That takes a lot of self-compassion to
Mm.
be patient with the false starts and the slipping backwards that happen.
Yeah, but
Do
at
you
the
have a
same
trick for
time,
how?
mm, I think the around the whole thing is that need to be kind to ourselves. I think we're so dang hard on ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, we make mistakes and we beat ourselves up. We do something that doesn't go right and we're like, and it's like, it doesn't help. It doesn't bring anything. It just makes us feel like crap,
It
right?
makes it worse. We don't learn, and we hurt and feel bad about
Yeah,
whatever we're feeling bad about.
yeah,
And we
exactly.
could use, instead of the self-flagellation, we could be kind and compassionate
Yeah,
and say, all right, what is my learning opportunity here?
yeah. Absolutely.
And we can't
Absolutely.
learn while we're beating ourselves up.
Nope. No. And part of that is definitely having patience to go through the change, because some change is hard and it doesn't happen overnight. So being patient and knowing that we can be on the other side of it if we show ourselves compassion and kindness. It doesn't have to happen, even if we want to, overnight. Sometimes it's a process.
And overnight is a self-imposed deadline
Yeah,
and
totally.
desire. So, and how can we be kind and patient to others if we aren't kind and patient with ourselves?
Right. Right. It's not possible. We need to be able to practice on ourselves first.
I'll be the guinea pig. Yes,
That's right. That's right. And
interesting.
at the same time, maybe when we're compassionate to others and we're patient with others is a way to show ourselves the way in being patient and compassionate to ourselves.
Yeah. So they can be the guinea pigs and we can reflect
Yeah,
it back on how we treat
yeah.
ourselves. Got it. So we should just practice all the time on
All the
everybody.
time. All the time. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you, I remember years ago, I did something stupid. Nothing like major, but in my mind, it was like the things that I said to myself. I was like, all of a sudden, I heard myself talking to myself, and I was like, oh my God, what a horrible thing to say. I wouldn't say this to my worst enemy. Why is it okay to say it to myself? Right. And in that moment, I think that was the trigger for me to pay more attention to the things I say
Good.
to myself. And the frequency of saying, doing something, I'm like, oh, you're such an idiot. And I'm like, no, not an idiot.
I made a
But
small mistake.
yeah, but being able to slowly, you know, patiently with kindness and compassion, make those make those changes is the only way to go.
Loving kindness. Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's my favorite takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing your truth and standing in it's good, but loving kindness, self-compassion
Mhm.
is important.
Yeah. I mean, and when you look at compassion and kindness are so needed in the world right now with everything that's going on, instead of, you
Yeah.
know, browbeating and all the stuff that's going on right now between Palestine and Israel and all of those situations. It's the world needs kindness and compassion so much
Doesn't it?
more than it has in recent years.
And don't forget Ukraine. There's a
Yeah,
lot
oh
of
yeah,
need for
yeah.
kindness and compassion.
No doubt, no
The
doubt.
the
Yeah,
Israeli-Palestinian thing's kind of taken the
yeah.
limelight
The
from
spotlight, for
Ukraine.
lack of a
And
better word. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So, and that's part of my meditation practice is to spread. I'm the little stone, and I put out
mm,
the ripples of love. I figure that's really the only way I can change things,
yeah.
just keep raising the energy of my world, which raises around people's energy around me.
Around you. Yeah, no, for sure.
And love has a nice high energy.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to go back quickly to what we were talking about before about setting boundaries. I think that one of the things we all need to do a better job at is articulating our truth, letting people know what our truth is. I think it goes hand in hand with setting the boundaries, right? Because if you say, I'm setting this boundary because of this, it makes it easier for people to understand and to respect it as well. It's not just, well, I arbitrarily decided that this is my boundary and all you can do is accept it or be gone, right? But if we say, this is my boundary and this is the reason why, and let me share my truth with you so you understand where I'm coming from, and we can find a way to, coexist with
Yeah,
that
yeah.
boundary.
It does take sharing it. That should be one of your truths, is to
Yeah.
share your boundary.
Yeah.
It's a way of re-expressing it to yourself and educating others
Yeah.
about what a truth could look like, and therefore what the boundary is with that.
It's about
And
reaffirming and sharing. Yeah.
reaffirming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's opening your heart to people, and that
Hmm.
builds better relationships, I believe.
I agree. It's also feels very vulnerable,
It
and it
is.
also feels very scary, which is where that kindness and compassion comes back in.
Good tie-in. Good. Yeah. Yeah. I had an associate who talked about, all right, I'm going to open the kimono here now. And that was his way of saying, I've got something
Keep that
scary
sucker
and
close.
personal. But it was his way of saying, I'm
Yeah,
opening my heart and I'm scared.
yeah. And
Yes,
I
and it
think it's
did.
okay to say that. I think it's okay to say that what you're sharing is vulnerable.
I think it helps. I think
Yeah,
it helps the other person's going to be a little uncomfortable in hearing it too.
yeah,
And as soon as you threaten to open your kimono, they know it's really time to be scared.
yeah, yeah. We're getting down to
But
business.
that lets them be more open and compassionate to hearing, I
Yeah,
believe.
I agree.
If it's too much, well, that's a whole nother conversation if they aren't ready to hear your truth and your boundary.
Yeah.
Hmm. Life's an interesting puzzle.
Yes, it is. Life is a wonderful adventure.
Yeah, it is. So, anything
Cool.
else that you think we need to cover that we didn't?
I don't think so. I think we've pretty much gone around the topic.
Okay. Um, the one thing, and I told you that I was going to bring this up, and I got too caught up in what we were talking about.
It's okay.
The whole topic of ageism has come back into my life in a new way. And
Mm,
so one of my truths is that we all do get older, but that doesn't mean we have to age in the way that is expected. I believe that the language we use makes the difference on how we
mm,
age. So for me, that is a truth. And when I hear right now I'm practicing on friends. When they make ageist comments, I go, do you know that's ageist and there's a different way of looking at it? And it
mm.
opens up some fascinating conversations. It might be interesting to try it with strangers soon, but the way we talk to ourselves about our truths, be it the isms or whatever else is right and wrong in the world for us, I think makes our path,
Mm.
when we're true to them, those things, it makes our path better,
Mm.
smoother. Actually, it may not be smoother. We may have chosen a rough path, but it makes it a path of higher integrity.
And more authenticity.
Yeah, there's that word again. So, do you have any offers for the audience today?
Actually, I do. I am running a webinar next Wednesday,
Yeah,
November 15th, I think is the
that's the
date
one.
at noon. 6 secrets of high-performing women who earn more and
Mm,
lead a more balanced life.
that is going to be fabulous.
So that's what I have going on next week. How about you?
Woo. I'm going to continue offering the YOS discovery. I think when you know why you do what you do, you can embrace your life and your truths better.
Nice.
So that's what and I will put all the our links in the show notes and stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to close it off first tonight.
All
I'm
right.
Alex Neal, certified high performance and mindset coach, and I work with high achieving women and who want it all but are exhausted, stressed out, unfulfilled. I help them to banish the hustle and live a life where career, well-being, and relationship all live in harmony.
Love that so much. And I'm Kit Cassingham, a longevity coach. I help women look at their mindset about their age ceiling to improve the quality of their life. And I help them discover their why operating system. And I could say I'm an anti-ageist. I am into age liberation, but that's another for another call.
Awesome. And what are we
All right,
talking
so
about next time?
ooh, the imposter syndrome.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
That's going to be a
I'm
good one.
looking forward to it. I better start
Me
thinking
too.
about that.
Me
It's
too.
a it's a phrase I've heard people use for a
Yeah,
long time. So
same.
I want to spin it into something we can chew on together.
It's a phrase I've heard people talk about for a long time, and it's also something I have suffered from. So
Oh,
it'll be,
okay.
I think it's going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, it will be. Look at the ways we can grow.
Awesome.
All
All
right.
right, Kit.
I will see you
See
next
you
month.
next month.
Bye.
Bye.